Hello everybody, my name is Carl and welcome back to Pal Bam Zing. Today we are going over this mini ITX system that I cobbled together using both new and used parts from places like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Letgo, and other secondhand apps that people sell their stuff on. So let's go over some of the parts. The first is the case, which is the Silverstone Sugo SG13B. I believe that's the official name for it. It's an extremely small form factor mini ITX case. It's really true to the name, mini ITX. I got that along with the power supply and the processor. All of those three things came in kind of like one bundle from the same person on the same app. I got these three things for $60 altogether. The EVGA 450BT is a reputable power supply. It's EVGA, it's rated, it's a nice power supply, and it's got all blacked out cables, not even like the parts close to the connectors. Can you see the ketchup and mustard cabling, which is really nice. Not that you'll be able to see it inside this case very well anyway, as there's really no windows in this case. There's some grates, but you know, take that for what it is. The G5400 is a fantastic processor for the price. I think it costs around $60 to $70 if you buy it new, but in my case, I guess if you did the math with the other things, I got it for maybe $30 or $40. And it's basically a 7th generation i3 7100. It's got 2 cores, 4 threads, so I'm excited to see how that performs. I got a 140 millimeter fan from Arctic, so it's PWM powered, so it can be silent if you want, not silent if you want, or blow tons of air through your system. I got it for the front of the case here, and I think it's going to fit perfectly right next to the GTX 770, which you can see up there. It's by MSI. I picked that up off of Letgo, I believe, for around $60. So I got a pretty solid deal on that. Graphics cards have come way down in price, which is awesome for people who love building secondhand systems like I do. The 240 gig solid state drive is from Professional, or at least says it's Professional. It's from Inland. It's Inland Professional. It's basically like the Amazon house brand, but it was super cheap. 240 gigabytes for $39 is not too bad at all. And since this is a system based on budget and power for performance, that was right up our alley. The Patriot Viper memory is 8 gigs of single channel RAM, so I picked that up for around 50 bucks. RAM is still pretty expensive, and even people who sell it secondhand really don't like to let it go for less than it is new, which personally I don't understand, but I consider myself a pretty aggressive secondhand seller and price my items reasonably, because I know that if there's only really a $5 or $10 difference between a used item that you didn't know how it was used and a brand new item for $5 to $10 more, you're always going to go with the brand new one. I don't understand why people price their items the same price or higher than a brand new equivalent. I've said all that to say I got that for 50 bucks, which I think is a solid compromise for getting a used part, as 8 gigs of memory will still run you anywhere from $15 to $20 higher than $50 for DDR4. And finally, last but not least, the H310 mini ITX motherboard from Asrock I bought because, for one thing, it was very cheap. Well, relatively cheap. ITX motherboards are some of the more expensive of the form factor group. But this had AC Wi-Fi, which was really nice. It was on sale for about $10 less than it normally is. I think it's supposed to retail for about $89. I got it for $78. And it's a solid looking board. You cannot overclock with it, so that is something to be noted because it is of the H letter chipset, not the B or the, I think you can overclock some of the Bs, and I certainly know you can the Zs, but you can't with the Hs. It doesn't matter anyway. The Pentium G5400 is a locked processor, so you're not going to be able to overclock that anyway unless someone figures out how to unlock it. But those are for people smarter than I am. All right, let's throw all the parts together. It's pretty incredible that all of these parts can actually fit into this tiny case. I'm really excited to work with it. ITX has become a more favorite form factor of mine. I like to see how inexpensive and small of a form factor I can get stuff and turn it around and show people or resell it and see how they react to something that's powerful enough as it is and is as small as it is. I don't know. Does that make any sense? It makes sense to me. I think it's cool. Maybe it's just cool. Maybe I just think it's cool. So let's get started. And we are back. And for the price, this PC performed amazingly for a budget of about $290. I will say though that the building experience in this case wasn't quite as fun as your standard ATX or micro ATX form factor. It was very tight to fit all the non-modular power supply cables inside this case. It was a bit cramped, as well as some shenaniganery with the SSD and the way that the SATA connectors and the power connectors were flipped. I kind of had to readjust things around, and it's not quite as clean as I would like them. A modular power supply would go a long way inside this case, which I don't have, but we managed to make it work. Temperatures in this case are around 60 degrees for the CPU, which is appropriate seeing as how everything's pretty cramped inside there, and it's on the Intel stock cooler. Temperatures for the graphics card can vary depending on how you set up your fan curve. At the stock fan curve, that is if you just stick your graphics card in your machine without any profiles set up on MSI or the overclocking utility of your choice or fan curve utility of your choice, it sits at around 80 degrees when under load. Right now it's anywhere from 79 to 80 degrees after warming up to the Heaven benchmark right here. So that's where it likes to sit at. It is quite quiet at this temperature though, and this profile that it comes with, however. So that's a user preference right there. I like my graphics card to be cooler while they're a little bit louder, as I'm usually wearing headphones when I'm gaming anyway, but I figured that this would be a good opportunity to show you guys what this card will perform as out of the box. So this is around 79, 80 degrees. Not bad, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just a little bit warmer than I would prefer for my own taste. Let's see, what else? The Intel G5400, the Pentium processor, regardless of its Pentium name, actually performs quite well. It got anywhere from 55 to 65 frames per second in Doom on average. It was a very pleasant game to play, Doom was. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds kind of dipped in and out a little bit on high settings, but if you dropped it down to medium or low settings, it was a very playable experience. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, however, didn't quite hit that 60 frame per second mark. As you saw, it sat around 30 frames per second. It was on the medium profile settings. I never dropped it down to low, but I imagine that you could get a decent boost out of it if you did that. The GTX 770, I think, was running out of VRAM, as that game is very graphically intensive as well as CPU intensive, so it's asking a lot of a $290 system. But you know what? It was still playable, especially when you're not also recording in the background using OBS or trying to stream. This system really doesn't have the specs to be able to meet both playable games and streaming or recording in the background at the same time. So there's that, but it was still very playable on its own. Let's see, what else? Oh, I had to kind of downgrade, I suppose you can say, the 140mm Arctic fan that I had to a 120mm Thermaltake Riing fan that I picked up, because the 140mm fan would not fit up next to the graphics card, which, as you could see from the video, stretches all the way from the end and end to this case. It clears the edge of the case by about millimeters and was kind of a pain to fit in to the box, to be honest with you. But anyways, I thought the 140mm fan would look better just because of how it sits in the case. Didn't end up working out, and I like the blue LED as kind of an accent to this subtle system anyways. So all in all, I'm super pleased with it for 290 bucks. It has some solid scores, it does some great gameplay, and I really hope that I was able to help you guys out and give you a reference point for any of these parts that you're picking up for your own build in the future. Thanks for hanging out with me on Palboy and Zing. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.